which we are live now, guys. And Miss Trudy,
Can you
do I
hear me?
need to? Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
You
Hi.
um, you want me to send you the link?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And hello, Facebook guys. Just give us a split second. You know how we start the sofa off anyway. We try to share without getting in Facebook jail. Hmm. Hmm. See how that works. All right. Let's see. And while we're doing this, how you ladies doing tonight?
Good. Very well. Very well.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Was Bible study good, Miss Morris?
Yeah, I did. I just stepped out early because they just went into Q&A. So I was like, well, I gotta go.
Okay. I do apologize.
No, it's fine. It's actually fine because we actually had a speaker tonight. So
Okay. All right. Let's see. Share message. All right, Miss Trudy, I just sent it to you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, a couple more shares, guys, and I will be ready to start off this little thingamajig. All right. So yeah, I can't share with 3 times. Like I was telling Miss Trinette, if I go over 3 times, I go to jail. And right now, just I've been I've been free for a couple of months now. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to Facebook jail. All right. So guys, thank you for tuning in to the Sofa Real Talk. And as you can see, I have some lovely panelists on tonight, and I would love for you guys to actually, if you don't know, I am LaRon Williams, and I am like the other half of this wonderful show. The other half is at work, and so maybe you'll see her on the show one day. If not, you'll definitely see her on the podcast and on TikTok or whatnot. But beside all that, guys, it doesn't matter who starts. Introduce yourself. Who could go first?
I guess I'll go first. My name is Tivia Morris. I am a native of Rome, Georgia, a small town outside of Atlanta. Um, I'm an author, speaker, and bariatric and personal development coach. Um, I guess what else about me other than the fact that I am a lover of life. Um, I'm originally, like I said, I'm originally from Rome. I lived in Atlanta for 6 years, and then I moved to Cartersville, Georgia, before the pandemic. And I am a corporate trainer for a tech software company. Been doing that for the past 5 years. We've been a part of the company for 19 years and counting. So really kind of transition out, out of the don't know when, but right now, that's what I'm a part of. So I'm happy to be here and I'm excited for this topic tonight and be able to join you lovely ladies tonight and also this gentleman again. So I'm glad to be here tonight. So thank you so much for the opportunity again.
You're very welcome. All right, Miss Trinette, you want to go?
Hey, you guys, I am Trinette Collier Green. I am a certified relationship coach. That is my new career, been a coach now for over 5 years, but now fully walking into it. I am an educator. And don't ask me anything about going back to school, okay? But I am here. I am so glad to be on this platform with you beautiful ladies and LaRon. Thank you again for having me and so forth. But this is what I do. I love building healthy relationships, starting with self and with family, friends, and all. So that's me, Trinette Collier Green.
All righty, and Miss Whitney.
Good evening, everyone. I am Evelyn Whitney, author of the book Truth Speak, Some Real Reasons That Men and Women Don't Communicate. I've been an author since 2016, and I'm working on a number of projects. But as all have said thus far, it is a privilege to be back on the sofa with all of you all for this particular generational boundary breaking discussion. I'm excited to jump in.
All right, Miss Trudy. Last but not least.
Hi everyone. My name is Trudy Brown. I'm a mother of five. Um, and I started a company for them called Too Bubbly about last year during the pandemic. So that's kind of my full time job right now. And I'm just a single mom, and I'm showing my kids how to break the generational habits of working a job every day and feeling like you're not yourself because you're dedicated to someone else's business. So that's pretty much one of the main things that I do. Other than that, I just kind of relax with my kids and just kind of soak up this time with them and just cherish the time that they're small and they're growing fast.
And hey, that's true. They are growing fast. You blink your eye, they are 55 before you know it. So it is a true statement. So, guys, going to start the intro, and soon after, we will talk about this lovely topic, which is generational habits and breaking them. So, see you guys in a second. All right, and we are back. So, generational habits. In most cases, we find ourselves looking back at our parents and their parents in hope that, um, they can rectify our bad decisions, but they cannot. They can only give you insight on who they were in the past and who they are now. Most families find this to be a taboo act, telling new generations about past difficulties and traumas. Understanding the why you do and stopping what you do are what we will talk about on tonight's sofa discussion. So, um, guys, as I was stating, we're going to do a little story, and it can be personal or not personal. It can be a story of something that you heard from a friend or whatnot. And like I was saying in the before we go live, I'm going a little personal. Due to I found out that in trying to be in a relationship, a good relationship at that, I had to look back at my parents. And so, for an example, a lot of people look back at their moms and dads, their grandparents, and they look at the longevity of that relationship. And you hear it going, it's being thrown around. My parents were together for 60 years. My grandparents were together from the time they got married to the time they died. That's what I want. That's what I want. But how deep did you go into that relationship? So I want to talk about what I had to be faced with. Me realizing that my selection in dating and being in a relationship came from me trying to rectify what my parents had and didn't have. Um, I found out that definitely if you have siblings and you're not in the house together for at least the same period of time, even then you are totally different and you experience things totally differently. And I found it out by doing a post on Facebook by just expressing that as a child, I needed to see my parents love on each other, hold hands, just talk sensibly to each other. And for me, I didn't get that. And I was met with, but didn't they have a house for you to live in? Did they make sure you was fed? yeah, every parent should do that for a child, but parenting is deeper than that. And so me coming back home in 2017 after leaving my ex-wife, um, finally having the guts to leave my previous marriage, um, I found out that a lot of my shortcomings came from my parents' shortcomings. I used to hate my dad for a period of time, and I had to realize that I had to forgive not only myself for hating him, but forgive him for the fact that his parents did not teach him to raise his own kids, and probably even goes further back. And so I had to sit down and I had to pray about it. And God clunked me upside the head several times to go and talk to my dad and try to figure out, hey, where have you been? Where have you come from? What have you gone through? And unfortunately, due to what he went through, he's just not brave enough to express those things. And so I'm unable to figure out any curses or habits that I know that I got from him. How could I break it more easily than me going out myself and reading, which I had to do. My mom, on the other hand, she became an open book, not only for her past, for helping me, but for me helping her as well. And so we have to understand that looking at our family, going deep, where I pull Exodus 34:7, the King James Version. Um, Keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquities and transgressions and sins, and that will be no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children's and upon the children's children's, upon the third and to the fourth generations. And with that, every individual is responsible for their own choices. And I had to realize that no matter what my parents went through, I am an adult now. I can't continuously blame them. And I learned that back in 2017 that unfortunately I'm a little older and it's never too late, but unfortunately, I had to cut that loose. And I think that was like one of my biggest habits that I cut loose was blaming my parents for, especially my dad, for not being the dad that I felt as though I needed him to be in order for me to be in a better place. And so I leave that story with you guys and the way that I changed the narratives of not waiting for them to figure out their own, I had to figure out mine. And sometimes you can't go back to your parents looking for that closure because they may not know how to get it themselves. And with that, it's a sad thing, but it's something that you have to live with. And I just see a lot of people falling short because they're wanting their parents to just wake up and say, "Hey, I'm sorry," and you may never get it. Even if they pass away, that's something that you would never get. And so you're just going to continuously be stuck. I don't want you to be stuck. So go out, get help. There's nothing wrong with counseling, especially in the Black community. Go get some help.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, my little lady said, hey. All right. So, Miss Morris, so, we have a little thing. You did make it in time. Yeah. What will your story be tonight about venturing in the generational habits?
I know for me, I can say that with generational cycles or habits, I mean, for me, it was a big thing for me was I want to say some similar to what you said, where I did not grow up in a household where I seen love and affection, where I seen what healthy relationship looks like. I was not shown that. What I was not taught what proper dating was supposed to look like. I didn't know what any of that looked like. So I had to like discover that on my own. Uh, and then even in adulthood, I still didn't get it right. It still is like now trying to like get it right at 43. And then there is also um, the financial world where I
Mm,
wasn't taught about money. I wasn't taught about how to make money. I didn't wasn't taught about credit. I wasn't taught about how to about credit period, how to make sure that your credit stays what credit was, why did I need credit, what the importance of having good credit. I didn't know that. So that was a habit too, a money habit where I seen how taking out loans or payday loans and things of that nature, just things that I thought was the nature of how life was supposed to go with money until I had to say, okay, I had to wake up and say, no, this is not a good relationship. This is not how relationship with money is supposed to be. And so
yeah.
when I came to reality and said, this is not how it's supposed to be done, and then began to associate myself with people to show me and really start learning myself, then I was able to kind of gradually teach a little bit to my family and say, okay, this is a newfound way. This is the way we're going to have to come out of this because we can't continue to do life like this because it's not correct. And I had to understand that because they it wasn't taught to them. And it's
Yeah.
like you said, it's a generational thing to where somebody has to be the brave one and say, the book stops here. I'm not going to let this thing continue on. And someone
Hmm.
has to take either have the guts and say, I'm not going to let this continue on. So that's my story when I say what needs to be broken in generational wise, and my story of where I come from with the generational habits with finances and healthy relationships. Those are two important things as an adult right now that it's the building foundation of any as an adult relationship and relationship with money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are the two concrete things we need to. I feel like as a people, we need to get a handle on, in order for us to be progressive and grow as productive people.
Yeah. Well, we don't have any comments at the moment. So, Miss Trudy, what about you?
I'm trying to turn my mic up. I'm not sure. Can you hear me
Uh,
okay or
yeah, we can hear you.
okay.
It's a little low,
So,
but we can hear you.
oh, okay. So, for me, so my mom, she isn't married. My dad is married, but so that was a really damaging relationship, and it was really damaging that I was a part of the situation that I was in. My step parent abused me. So when my mom finally got me back from my dad, um, it was just I was damaged, and so then I took it out on my siblings, and I just knew I didn't want to do that to my children. So I've been in like therapy my whole life, pretty much, just to talk about the difficult things that I went through as a child. And I just knew I did not want to, pass that on to my children. I knew they deserve better. They didn't ask to be here. Um, I did fail with my kids a little bit, and we're just starting to pick it back up. But for me, I feel like the relationships, like you get in these relationships and you don't know who you are, and it's because you're trying to figure yourself out and love someone else, and then you have a baby and that changes things, and you don't know how to adjust anymore, and especially as women, we have to adjust to a new baby, new body, new schedule. We have a list of things that we have to adjust to, whereas the man, I feel like it's a little bit like it's easier for them. I'm gonna just say that. But yeah, it's way easier for them. But for me, I just feel like the things that came from my childhood, I I try not to continue to bring it with me, and I don't blame my mom, but I try to have these conversations with her to let her know how I feel, and it's kind of like sometimes I get rejected, but now she's opening up and she see like, okay, we need to have these talks because you were hurt, from my actions and your father's actions, and she see I'm trying my best for my children, and just try not to be that, normal, statistical black mom. You know, I want better for my children, so I put standards on them. And I literally, that's why I show them the business that I do now, that you can make money doing anything pretty much.
Yeah.
In the legal way. Like I
Yeah.
explain, my oldest to be 12 next month, and I constantly explain to him like, I'm trying to show you how to make an honest dollar by yourself instead of saying, "Oh, I work 40 hours, but I need overtime because I got to catch up with these bills because I fell short on this and I'm sick, but I need a new car." But all that stuff piles up on us, and we just don't know how we're going to get it done, instead of saying, I'm going to go get it myself. I'm going to get out here and hustle and grind and just, live my life. So, yeah, that's how I'm trying to break the generational habit, um, by showing my kids an honest hustle.
Well, like Lisa stated, changing the narratives, and that's what our
Yeah.
season is about on all our platforms, is changing the narratives. We just don't want to talk about these conversations. We really seriously want to figure out how do we change the issue to be something better. I do actually want to go back to Ms. Morris right quick and ask, um, well, not even ask, but just emphasize on the fact that the financial part, that is so true, because I can sit up here and say I'm awful at it, but the fact that Lisa is good at it, I have learned something. And I told her, man, until here recently, I got hit hard with something, but it's like the most money I've saved ever. And I'm 41. And it's sad to say that. But I saw my parents doing bills, but they were doing bills separately. Uh, they didn't sit me down. And the first thing my mom said, don't get a credit card unless you had a job. And so when I got a job, I got a credit card. She didn't say, don't not get more than one. So I got several.
Right.
And so um, Miss Sandra says you are definitely doing it with this route going back to Miss Trudy. And also Miss Lisa stated breaking them chains. And hey, we all have learned something some days or something like that. I didn't understand her, so I apologize, baby. But now going back to you, Miss Trudy, that is actually um, I think one of the biggest things that we suffer with in the black community when it comes down to trying to teach our kids how to do something legally.
Right.
And because I was doing some undermining things myself, and only because of me having multiple sclerosis and me not being able to work and me thinking that I need to provide for my family, which anybody does need to, but me being a man, having to be the head and trying to be the head, and I can't be the head, and so I started doing things or that I knew was going to possibly get me in trouble if I got it. And I had to figure out, where did that come from? And I knew where it came from. But again, like I said, and going back to which I applaud your mom for being that person, reneging at the beginning, but then all of a sudden saying, you know what? Okay, let's have that talk. So that is a groundbreaking thing. Now, I do have a question for you. When you say um, you failed, when you can you describe a moment where you feel like you failed for your kids?
Yeah, so I feel like, they have different fathers, not all of them, but it's like two and two and then one.
Okay.
Um, but me trying to love on someone else and not loving myself, and not knowing that, like, I had no clue what I was pretty much doing. So I feel like I wanted my kids in one household with their parents, and like you said, seeing them loving on each other and showing them, just what, being a family is about. Because we know family, but we don't know the depth of it. Like, we see the surface.
Yeah.
So most of the time we don't know, if our parents are arguing, what they're arguing about. Um, Instead of breaking it down to them, like, we had an argument over money and you guys need to do this, this, and this. Like, I don't break anything down to them. I just say, okay, hey, this is, what we're doing now. And now, I was just in a 6-year relationship and we're on a break. And we have 2 kids, and I just feel like I failed my baby because of, I don't know, like, just maybe being too controlling or being overwhelmed with things, not knowing how to handle it, not having like a grown woman to sit down with and actually have a deep conversation on how to love a man, and not having a father show me, like, okay, this is what you accept from a man, this is what you do not accept from a man. It just goes so deep. It does. It goes so deep, and I feel like I failed them because it's like I'm constantly like in and out. Like, I'm in the relationship and then I'm out. So I just feel like, give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, while we're waiting for her, Miss Trinette, you can actually go ahead with your lovely story.
Well, mine is personal as well, and that's what it actually prompted me into going into this field of relationship building. Mine stem from my mother and my grandmother, which are now both deceased. Both of my parents are deceased. So for me, um, I had to learn how to build a healthy relationship with my mother. It wasn't abusive or anything like that, but it was we were not the mother daughter team you see people posting with that. This is my best friend, this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that type of relationship, and I'm the oldest of five, and so over time I used to wonder, like, why am I not best friends with my mom, and I see my friends with their, having this relationship, and I it didn't now that I'm older and I'm understanding life and I understand her path and my grandparents' path, my parents' path and my grandparents' path, I don't blame them. So I had to start with the blaming.
Yep.
And I think that's part of human nature that was natural because again, we don't know who to blame at that moment. We are going to blame our parents. But
Yep.
at that time, my mother was very strict. I come from a military home. So my father was in the military and we traveled. And so my mom, she was that she was the manager of our estate, raising 5 kids. She's traveling with her husband. She's trying to keep things in order. And over the course, um, her relationship with me was, you're going to do this, 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 that, another. So my mother got pregnant with me at 16. So in her journey and teaching me how to be, my mom taught me how to be a woman. She taught me how to cook, clean, be domestic, all of these things. My mom was the ultimate stay at home mom. I can never take that away from her. We had meals all day, like our home was our home. However, when I think our relationship started turning when I turned 16 because she was afraid I was going to do the same thing, get pregnant and not, fulfill my goal, but it came out in the wrong way,
Yeah.
and so when I turned, so over time, it was just this constant pressure. I had pressure as I'm the oldest child, I'm the oldest grandchild out of 13 grandkids. So I always had this pressure from not only my mom, but my grandmother as well. You got to do this. You got to make the example. You got to set the example. And I'm just like, I didn't ask to, do all of this. So in turn, it was, I could never do anything wrong. So I had to create this perfect world for myself just to make sure that I was on this perfect path. So it didn't my breaking of the generational habits didn't start until after my first marriage. I got divorced, and I started noticing some things, some patterns, the nagging, the constant fussing, the constant, trying to make things perfect. And I remember talking to one of my cousins, and I said, "Are y'all experiencing the same thing, from your parents, my mom's siblings?" And surprisingly, we were. The siblings and their children, we were all experiencing some similar habits. And so it wasn't then until father passed in 94. And so time went on. And it wasn't until around 2007, 2000, I got divorced in 2007. And so around 2008, I started thinking of some things like something is just not right. Even though my parents were together, they married, all of this, their siblings have been married and in good relationships, but these habits were still lingering. So I went on I remember the day I wrote a letter to both my mom and my grandmother and explained to them that I could no longer be involved in this toxic relationship because long story short, it was toxic over the time. My grandmother would call me. I'm sorry. My grandmother would call me from Tennessee complaining to me about my cousins. And I'm like, I have nothing to do with all this, so, but I remember writing a letter to them. I sent it, it was not easy because I was never that child to talk back, I just didn't do it, but I had to write to them and let them know that I could no longer be involved in the toxic conversations. The fussing has got to stop, the nagging. It was a long 2-page, 3-page letter. I wrote it, I sent it to both of them. I cut off communication with the both of them. What did I do that for? And that was not a pretty sight, if you all can imagine, because now people my family's like, what you do this for? This or that, but they didn't understand what was happening to me. So that was my journey into the breaking of the generational habits. Now, I want to make it clear that I didn't do any of this to be rebellious. It wasn't like I don't want, because what I wanted was I desired a healthy relationship with my mother.
Yeah.
I desired a healthy relationship with my grandmother, even though on the surface it was good, but underneath it was filled with nagging and fussing and just things of the past. It was filled with a lot of hurt, and I didn't realize it until I started going into the research of our family. My mother had been hurt by her mother. Her mother had been hurt by her mother, and so forth. So this journey included for me researching, going back into my family, and looking at the women of my family, like what triggered, what is going on besides being strong Black women. There was a lot underneath that was covered with that. So on this journey for me, it included prayer. It included isolation, meaning I had to literally go to, again, it wasn't an easy task. So it wasn't anything that I bragged, oh, I cut mom and my dad them off, because no, it was not. I cried, and it was just, it was something I had to do, and it only lasted for about 2 years, like literally 2 years. I know like anything could have happened, but I had to trust God in the process. I had to trust that nothing would happen to my mom and my grandmother on this journey, because I was determined through him to break break this generational habit. And
Yeah.
so I stayed on that course, and right before I remarried, 2017, we stopped. I stopped talking to them around it was like 2012 or so, like that. But like I said, it's about a year and a half too. But 2017, right before I got married, my mom and I sat down and had breakfast for the first time in our lives, and we talked. And my mom was like, she was talking to me about, we talked on an adult level. See, before my mom would talk to me as a child, and I'm like, I'm 40 some years old. I'm 30 years old. But she was still talking to me as though I was 12, 13, 15 or whatever. Just like her mom was still trying to talk to her and run her life. My mom was grown with 5 kids and a husband. So with all that being said, I had to literally, through the prayer, through the crying, through the therapy, through just saying the forgiveness, I had to say, you know what, Mom, I love you. And we had the best breakfast ever. And I got married. She was extremely happy. I was marrying him some honey. Like, you can see that chain literally breaking, because we had that conversation as adult women, and for the first time. And then that's when she passed. So I knew that it was all God divine in what I did. And that's why I tell people, you can break generational habits. It's not going to look like what you think is going to look like. And it is going to require some work and some prayers and fasting and all of that, but it can be done. So that's my personal story, and I'm glad I got through without crying, because it's always an emotional for me, because again, this is something I desired, and no, I didn't get a chance to become her best friend after the years, but that one moment was the highlight of my years. Like everything else, to be honest, I totally forgot about all of the fussing, the even with my grandmother, we had our breakout moments. So those moments define no longer I lived in the past. So that's my story of breaking that generational habit.
Well, I'm gonna say this to Miss Trudy, and then I'm gonna let you guys know something that's funny. Uh, one of the one of our viewers was basically reading my mind, but you stepped away. You didn't fail,
Right.
so
You didn't.
you did not fail whatsoever. So that is one thing that you need to change the narrative of, is stop telling yourself that you failed. Because one thing that you did state that you're being triumphant with is that you seek help, you're talking to someone. And then the fact that you are still trying to talk to your mom and you're trying to figure out who you are. So that in itself is something to be proud of, and something to go to your kids about too as well. So don't, there's like a life lesson to learn for yourself. Don't be that person, because your kids are going to come to you as well and ask these same hard questions. Who am I? And the only thing that you can do is basically tell them who you are, because you have to understand that there is another parent involved. And unfortunately, they may not be able to go to that parent and find that same openness that you're able to provide for them. So stop saying that you failed.
And can I interject, Lauren? I also noticed that mothers, I'm not a mother, so I had to understand the role of you all as mothers. And again, like you were saying, Trudy, like you wear so many hats, and nobody ever asks the mothers to, like, you just jump into your roles, right? And I didn't realize with my mom had become a mother at 16, a wife at 18, a military wife, and her life has been dedicated to her entire family. So
Right.
my mom didn't get a chance to fulfill her dreams and aspirations, and she didn't know how to deal with it. And so when I say I agree with LaRon, stop saying that you failed. You didn't fail. That is a step towards healing, and your healing is not going to look like what the world tells you to it's supposed to look like. It's going to look totally different. But as long as you know that you're trying and God knows that you are, you have to do it one step at a time. Like I'm like LaRon, change that narrative, because give yourself a pat on the back. You did not fail. You have not.
Yeah, yeah. Miss, let me see who I want to give the Miss Paris was saying that at the same time that I was finna say it, I saw she typed it and you had stepped away, and I replied to hers and was let her know that I'll mention that to you. So we did have a couple of people say something. We have to learn to be the true role model so our children can see how to survive in life. Um, and the other comments came in at let me see. Oh, this is so funny. It has nothing to do about the show, but why you was talking, Miss Trinette, I got put in jail.
Oh,
Oh, that's why it kicked off.
I saw that too, and I was completely wondering. I was curious about how that was going and what was actually happening.
So while you was talking, I had to reset my password and log back in. But
I ain't got no bail money for you. I ain't got no bail money. I'm trying to keep
that
mine for mine.
that in itself
Off. I mean,
just
what did you do bad?
Right.
that in itself just basically tells me that this was supposed to be on,
Yes,
and
yes.
uh, like I said, I was just sharing it, and unfortunately, I can't share it but 3 times. If I share over 3, and I wasn't sharing it the same way every time, I shared it to a group, and then I went to Messenger. But obviously, still, they just said, "Hey, you have some activities on your page that are suspicious," and yeah, they kicked me out. So I had to reset my password, log back in, and um, some people are still able to watch, but it does show that it doesn't. We don't have any views, but we're gonna still keep going, and I can download it, and I'm going to repost it because I just tried to go back to it, and it stopped at a particular part. But some people are still on, so we're gonna keep going. But Miss Trudy, definitely take that out of your vocabulary. That's one of the things that you need to take out. The day it was not a mistake. The first day I met you, um, uh, it was meant, and so let me, because unfortunately in my previous marriage I had to wear so many hats, and so when you was talking about men and how easy it is, you're totally correct. But unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to bear witness to that easy part that you were referring to a man has, because she also had some generational habits that she's battling with. I don't know what's going on with her right now, but in the marriage, it was definitely there to the point that I uncomfortably had to wear multiple hats, also as being a version of a male mom. And I didn't know what I was doing. I did the best that I could.
yeah.
But now a lot of that is coming back to bite me in the butt. And I didn't ask for it. But it did teach me some things. And I think what it did for me was open the door for me to have the relationship that I have now. And to be able to go back and say, hey, crap, something's going on with me. Something's wrong with me. And I need to find a core issue. And it stems back to the parents. But we have to take responsibility of our actions now. So the fact that you realize that there's issue going on with you, that you've gone to seek help. So please stop saying you failed. you're still young. So just look at it as life lessons and say, hey, never be scared to tell your babies that you made bad decisions. Don't let's say you fail. You just made bad decisions and you've learned from them to teach them better.
Yes.
Yeah.
So last but not least, the lovely Miss Whitney, what do you have for us?
One point beginning, which kind of continues on from the previous point, the commenter who said you are not a failure was also reading my mind when they added that. And I completely second everything that everyone has said about that. So I will leave that in capable consideration. But I absolutely agree with everything that has been said in consistency with that. My personal story, this one is personal. I'll actually share it, but I do have to qualify it just a little bit. My perspective is a little bit different on the personal aspect of this story. My parents were married when I was born. My father had the longest job that I'd ever known him to have was in food service for health administration. He worked at a hospital. He was also very sickly. He had a gastrointestinal condition that required he have a surgery. And when I was maybe 4 or 5, he literally physically became a different man. He was physically not of his same stature, and his personality didn't change. I don't mean a different person in that way, but I do mean that when my youngest memories of him, he's this huge guy. he's big, working, bringing the groceries home, doing all the things that we typically think that the man is supposed to do. And my mother was a housewife at that time. After his surgery, he still worked. He lost literally almost half his weight. He became a very small man after that, but he still worked. He did the going back and forth to work every day thing, the getting up, helping the kids get ready for school thing, picking us up from school when we went to a school that was in close enough walking distance that he could come and get us. And it was a long time that I saw him live in this condition that was less than what I saw him as a child. And I just physically mean less because he was a much smaller man. When it got to the point that he wasn't physically able to work the way that I had seen him work my whole life, my mother began working outside the home. I don't remember how many different jobs she had, but one of the ones I remember was that she worked at a post office. And at that time, post offices were notorious for people blowing up and losing all of their control and just erupting on, I don't even want to call it the slightest provocation, because for most people, by the time it gets to that point of eruption, there have been slight provocations all up through that point. So it's like a volcano erupting at this point because of everything else that's happening thus far. Nonetheless, even though medically he couldn't work, they said that he could still drive. I'm not sure what the differences were, but he would still take her back and forth to work every time she had to work. And we would be at home with him. So I don't want to say long story short as if to just skip over the substance of the detail, but as a young child, watching my father work and then become sick and then not be able to work, and then my mother work, here's where the caveat shifts for me. That model did not teach me that women only work when the man can't. I didn't get that from watching my parents. What I understood from them is when you get married, you and your partner are a team. When he is down, you hold him up. When he healed enough to go back to doing something that medically he was allowed to do, she didn't work, and now he was doing it again. So that back and forth was the team dynamic that I saw operate with among my parents. And for me, being the kind of child that I was, that is what I saw as the framework of what a marriage is supposed to look like. It wasn't necessarily that the woman is only allowed to work outside if her man is somehow unable to. It was when he's able, he does it. When she's able, she does it. And that's how the family moves forward as a unit. That's what I got when I was little, watching my parents go back and forth like this. It wasn't until I started going to school and started listening to the things that my classmates were saying that I began to get this sense of women are supposed to want to be married. They're supposed to want to have kids. That's the only thing that's supposed to suffice as a goal for them. And no matter what they do in the meantime, once they get married, that's supposed to fall to the back burner, because now her objective is to be married, to have the kids, to raise the kids, to keep the house, and to do all of those kinds of things. Now, for me, that was obviously very challenging, because that isn't at all the household that I grew up in. So I'm seeing both sides of it. I'm watching both sides of it. And I'm seeing the healthy aspect of the dynamic between my parents' relationship. And then I'm watching how society treats women differently than it does men in regard to relationships. Because only for the woman is marriage the ultimate goal. For men, they're spoon-fed that your career and making money is everything you're supposed to live for. And if you can have yourself flanked by party favors dressed in bikinis, then all the better. But the idea that men and women are treated so differently in regard to the priority of a relationship was something that I did not see from my parents. I saw that from outside of our household. And I began to recognize that because that's the way society is acting, that's also the way that people are behaving. And then you wonder why they're doing these things that put them in toxic situations. And it's just like, for me, a lot of that didn't really make sense, because it wasn't the motif that I grew up under. It was starkly different. Society would treat me like the only thing I'm ever supposed to do is want to have kids. So if I'm a woman who wants to work outside the home with a goal that has a career objective, I'm automatically out of line. I'm sure we've all heard that language recently. I'm out of my place. We've also heard that language recently. And particularly, you asked the point that if what I want to do is a male-dominated field, like architecture, like construction, like engineering, which all of those I studied, society was trying to suffocate me back into their mold versus me just being what I was allowed to grow up as, the individual that I am. And that later became the impetus for my book. The reasons that men and women have such difficulty in relationships stem back to the differences in the priority that they're given. For women, the only thing you're ever supposed to want is to be married. There are people who actually joke that wealthy families send their daughters to Ivy League schools just so she can meet an Ivy League man. The objective in college is the MRS. That is the way that I've seen people project that notion. And when they look at me like I'm strange, when I don't want to fall in line with those premises, when I don't want to do those things, and when those things aren't motivators for me as much as they are for other people. Both of my parents have passed away at this point, but I do have to say that the example that they set for me growing up, allowing me to see them in a healthy dynamic and grow up into myself grow up into the individual that I am, because I saw that healthy dynamic. I never felt the pressure to be married by a certain age, to have kids by a certain age. Only did I recognize other people putting that on me was I firm enough in my own experience to say, wait a minute, that's what you're telling me I should want to do? You don't get to determine what I should want. That's not up to you. I can determine what I want because I was enabled as a girl child to think for myself and see a healthy relationship. So I am trying to address some of the societal dysfunction from the standpoint of what it felt like to have those things imposed upon me by society when it wasn't taught from my household that this is the way that things should be.
And that is like one of the things I feel that people are having the biggest issue with, not having that family dynamic that you're referring to. And something that I wanted to also say to Miss Trudy, with finding out who she is, and that's with any of us, definitely finding out who we are before we try to love someone else. The best relationship to have initially is the relationship with yourself, and knowing who you are allows you to express that to the other person, and that other person knowing who they are. Something that you realize that society has basically stated 50-50 on, a relationship is 50-50 when it's truly supposed to be you being 100% and the other person being 100%, due to, because if you go, and just throwing something out, if you go into a relationship 50 or 75% and that other person comes in at 100, somewhere that person has to give you 25 in order for you to be 100%. That means that it takes away from that person. And if that person decides to leave the relationship, let's believe that they're going to take that 25 back and maybe even more, which then now you're lost and you feel as though you can't live without this relationship because that person provided that extra percentage that you should have provided for yourself. So again, goes back just to emphasize that you getting that help, and anybody getting any form of help is coming in terms with, okay, I have an issue and I need to better myself. Definitely if I have kids, and that's something that I had to do because I've ruined all my kids, and I know I have. And but like I tell them today, the reason why I sought out and got help, looked into a lot of my past, did some course correction, and now I found myself in a one heck of a relationship. I need to show my boys how to treat a woman, and I need to show my girls how to be treated. And even with her kids, I expressed to them, it's not my job to replace your dad, but as you are with me, it is my job to show you by treating your mom to the utmost respect and as a woman and as a equal person beside me. And that's the only way that we can go by, pretty much kind of like your parents. And so I love the fact that you didn't get bogged down with those curses until, okay, school starts. And unfortunately, it's like 90% of the world pretty much.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's a sad thing.
Even through that, I was able to see how much pressure society put on women to prioritize relationships when they never put that equal prioritization on the relationships for the man. And then you wonder why a woman is talking with a guy and they're 6 months in. She asks, what are we doing? Where are we going? What are your intentions with this? He's looking at her like she's clingy and dysfunctional and broken and needy and all of these types of things, just because they have been fundamentally taught such different things about the prioritization of relationships. And it is really serious when society bears down on women like vultures about this, but they never equally emphasize that if we're going to say marriage is important, relationships are important, community and family are important, don't just preach that to women. The men need to hear that with as much emphasis for there to be a foundation for them to coming together on those premises for growth as a community. But they often leave that part out.
I think what it is that they groom women or girls. They groom girls to be wives. but they don't groom boys to be husbands.
Exactly.
And so that's where the breakdown has been in the whole thing, in the whole matter, when it comes to the relationship on that area, in that area, and especially the church has preached to women, and told women how to be, how they should be, how they should act, to the point to where they've told the woman how to be the woman and be the wife, but have failed in their duty, or failed in the area of teaching the men how to be husbands and what it is to be a man and be a husband. They didn't groom the man to be the husband. They just need the men to be the men, and the women is supposed to take on the responsibility of being this model, in this way for him, and never giving him the responsibility to be this way as well for us, because the Bible strictly does say, okay, wives, the husbands, you are supposed to love her as Christ loves the church, and he gave some list of specifics to you as well. So that never gets taught. That has never got taught, and so I feel like that has been the breakdown of how the relationship is supposed to be built, or not knowing that men, you are the head. But if you want to take the lead, you got to know at least know the foundation, and build that foundation as the man, as the lead. God being the head, you are the head, and then you got to get the order right. And if the order is not right, nothing is going to correct. So I feel like that's where it all starts with the breakdown, and why you experience is because your family, your model came from a great model. He came from a 2-parent household. TD Jakes taught a great message. Him and Sarita taught a great message. How she came from a household, he came from a household. They both learned 2 different things. They both were under a different thing, 2 different things. Now you're bringing those 2 people who sing 2 different things, and they're now trying to merge what they both sing together, and now they have to try to figure out components are conducive for them in order for their relationship to work. And so with your model, you sing, and you got it, and they have a different model than what you've seen. And so that's what it is today. Everybody is growing up either without a model, or they have to be. Like me, I grew up with the Cosby Show. I grew up with Different World. I grew up with that being my model, because I didn't have a healthy model. So I had to kind of build my model. And now that when I built my model, I didn't have that model at home. So now I have this model in my mind of that's how a man's supposed to. That's what I want. But when you get out in the world, that's not what the world is offering. So now you have to say, okay, well, the world, that they're not offering that, it ain't in the church. No. Because what's in the world is in the church, and what's in the church is in the world. So it's like, how do I get what I've seen come to me? How do I get what I've seen in my life? And so that has been I think that's been the battle for women who want something that's real, want something that's healthy. I'm going to say, and not every woman is a wife, and not every man is a husband. And I think we have to understand that too, when you know what a wife is, and when you know what the role of a husband is, and not everyone is equipped for that role. Not everyone is equipped for that. And it's something that God showed me today in my prayer time, is that what he had me pray out, because I do this thing every morning. And one thing I prayed out, because even though I'm not married, I pray for my husband every day. And it's one thing that I prayed out, and I spoke, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, I'm flawed and I'm imperfect, but we're purposed. I'm flawed, I'm imperfect, but I'm purposed for you. You're flawed, you're imperfect, but you're purposed for me. We're flawed, we're imperfect, but we're purposed for each other. And I think when we understand that that we're flawed, we're imperfect. But when we're purposed for each other, that's when we know we got to look at that. Marriage is not for sex, it's not for love, it's for purpose. And when we really look at that we are to fulfill a purpose together, if we know what our purpose is and we know what our mission, our vision is as a couple, and know that our purpose is to be fulfilled as a couple, then we know what our purpose is for marriage, and which is ministry and purpose. And I think relationship, that's what relationship is supposed to be for. And of course, we don't know that, and a lot of people wasn't taught that as a people. We were not taught that. Some people are coming into the revelation of it now, which is good. But I think that going back to your model that you had, it's good that you had that model, and it's good that you also had the opportunity to see another model, so that you can be the answer to those people who did not have that model.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is exactly the impetus for this book right here. To show those things and to help people recognize the sources of the dysfunctions that they continue to practice, and wonder why they're not getting the results that they think they should get. And one of those is definitely the idea that it's funny you should say that women are prepared to be mothers, but men are never prepared to be fathers. When we talk about that, we generally make the observation about that in the toys that boys and girls are bought. When girls are bought baby dolls to teach them how to be mothers, as if boys don't grow up and be fathers someday.
Yeah, we always get those soldiers and workmen
and the construction.
Yeah.
But why aren't boys given baby dolls as toys to teach them how to be fathers, the same way that girls are given to practice motherhood through their play, as the intent goes?
Yeah.
But for me, and what you were talking about earlier on the importance of having a quality model, that is one of the generational habits that I wanted to break. The unequal emphasis on priority of marriage heavily upon women, and not so much at all on men. Women are groomed to live for marriage, when men are taught that if they can put it off for as long as they possibly can, that's good. But eventually, if they have to, then get somebody who is a model or something. It's all about the superficial thing, when women are spoon fed that his character is supposed to be important, so he can look like a Wookiee, and it's okay. It's not, but that's a whole different thing. Yeah. So that model of what people don't recognize they're following and yielding to the influence of is what I am seeking to open their eyes to, so they will be enabled and thereby capable of making better choices.
Yeah.
So, great show, guys. Do we have something I want to say at the end? But do you guys have any closing last things that you would like to express, Miss Trinette?
For me, again, as I always state, thank you again for allowing me to speak and share this platform, because again, that is something that I specialize in building that healthy relationship, and it has to start with us, and throughout my walk, building one of my goals and prayers, and it was answered, was to build a healthy relationship with my mother and my grandmother, the women, and I always want to say that it's never too late for anything. No, as long as you have breath in your body, as long as you're waking up, it is never too late. Society has put a time on us. God never said a time. And when if we can clear that out of our head, we will be all right. So there's never it's never too late to build that healthy relationship. It's never too late to break that generational habit. And don't look at it, oh, it's going to take longer, this, that, and other. No, it is breaking. And sometimes it may be a day, it may be a month, it may be a year, it may be some years. But when you go into it with a kingdom mindset, a kingdom building, that's the difference. Because I could have easily been like, well, I'm, with an attitude and this, that, I don't care about.
Yeah.
No, you have to do it with a different mindset. If you're, we love to sing our song. I'm breaking every chain. Jesus be,
Yeah.
we love to quote these scriptures and we love to sing these breaking chain songs.
Yeah, you got
But
to do it though.
right, and we don't understand that it requires work in that faith, and it actually requires us. We can sing it all day long, but if we're going to sing it out of one side of our mouth, and we're going to go out here into the world and speak against it, it's not going to work. So you have to make it up in your mind. You have to be determined first to say, this is what I'm going to do. And God, give me the strength, give me the durability, give me what I need to break this habit, this unhealthy, this toxic habit, so that my children and their children and their children and so forth, or my siblings or my family won't have to go through this. And again, it's not going to look favorable to everyone. It's not
Yeah.
supposed to look favorable. It's going to look weird when you have to now make, choose to respond in a different manner when they're used to you to responding. It's not going to
Yep.
look the same. So I just want to leave with that breaking the generational habits can happen. It will. You have to speak life into it, and get you a good support village to
Yeah.
help you on this
And
journey.
it doesn't mean it doesn't always have to be family, because sometimes
Exactly.
family is the wrong support village to
Exactly.
have.
Yeah. If you get you a good prayer warrior who understands the purpose and the mission of it, you can do it. So that's just what I want to leave. That it can be broken.
It can be done.
Yeah. What about you, Miss Trudy?
I just wanted to share, like, so in May, so I had my baby in March, and I was starting to go through postpartum, and so my mom offered me the opportunity to go to Atlanta and get a break. Now that didn't mean a break without my children. So I left the boys with their father, and I took my girls with me, and the response and feedback that I got from that was so uncomfortable. I just want to say that it's okay for moms to actually get a break and clear their mental state. So I was gone for a month. I was out of town for a month, and I left my boys with their fathers, and everyone was freaking out about it. They were like, "What are you? It's not normal." Because it's not normal for us to get a break when we wear all of the hats, like you said.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I came back and I missed my kids so much because I'm a full time mom, but I felt rejuvenated and I was ready to give it another go. But, just yesterday we had an Amber Alert here because a mom wanted to take her kids into the lake because we don't preach, and it was actually my cousins. So we don't extend that hand. We too often judge, and think about what's normal or how we parent, what we would do in that situation. And not once did I judge because I get it. I have
Yeah.
thoughts, I go through things, but with me breaking that generational habit of, I say, come on, let's pack up and go outside. Let's go to the park because I don't
Yeah.
want to keep us trapped in the house knowing I'm frustrated for the day and they're just doing kid things, and it's normal for them to do those things, but it's not helping me. So I
Right.
Yeah.
just want to reach out to the moms and say, go outside, make a picnic, and just lay in the sun, and just try to have a better day.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. And I really thank you for inviting me to come to the show. I really appreciate it. I
Oh
love
man,
it.
anytime.
Trudy,
Hey,
I'm sorry. Trudy, it's just in my spirit. Like
Yeah.
you have a purpose. You have a
mhm.
message for other moms because again, my hats go off to you guys, to mothers. I don't like now looking back at my mom. You all don't get that break, and like you said, we're always judging. The outside is always judging, and then the thing is, we find ourselves judging. But the first thing that goes something that goes wrong. Why didn't she call on her village? Why didn't she take a break? Well, I did try to take a break. Y'all, I commend
Y'all
you.
ain't want to, but I don't want to help.
Right.
And I think we need to normalize that mothers taking those breaks and being okay. And I firmly believe, I agree with you, and I'm so glad you did. So that's why I say give yourself a big hug, a round of applause. And this is going to help other mothers that feel like, wait a minute, she did it. Okay, there are steps that I can do too to take this same. So give yourself a bit, I always say that high five, but I commend you for doing that. I really do. It blessed me. And you're going to bless so many other mothers.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What about you, Miss Evelyn? Any last words?
Oh, yes. Thank you again so much for the platform to share and talk with all of these young ladies about everything that we're trying to do to break these generational curses. I appreciate always being invited to the sofa to have these conversations. I really do appreciate it. One of the last thing that I would share is something that I want to leave as a practical step that people can take to break generational curses relating to the pressure on women to be married and not pressure on men to be married, and to balance that out. I've heard women say a lot that when they're looking for the authority figure for a man, he needs to have some bass in his voice. He needs to be able to command me. He needs to be able to tell me what to do. Otherwise, he's not a leader. Otherwise, he's not qualified for my submission to him. Yes, I said that on purpose.
That
But
lovely word.
yes, one of the practical thing that I want to talk about that is to to exploit how dysfunctional that mentality is. It is actually very childish for a person to say, until I can push you to a certain level of expression, then I'm not going to listen to you. If we look at a child, a toddler, a baby, and we say, if you don't go pick up your toys, I'm going to spank you to the count of 3 to go pick up your toys. That toddler usually says, okay, I'm going to stand here and look at you until I can watch
get 3. Yeah.
before they get to 3.
Yeah.
And then to put 35, 40 years on that mentality, that's what it looks like when a woman says, if a man doesn't have bass in his voice, he's not capable to be a leader. That means unless I can push him to the fact that he's threatening and trying to harshly put his foot down, then I'm not going to listen. That is the incestuous sister of the brother dysfunction that men think unless they can bark orders at people, they don't know how to lead. So when you have women who are looking for being barked at, and you have men who are practicing barking because that's what their flawed view of leadership is, they feed each other's dysfunction. And then they teach that dysfunction to their kids, and then it goes and it perpetuates. An easy way to get out from under all of that would be, as we've been talking about, this matter of faith, this prayer notion, and God being incorporated into the relationship. What does leadership and authority look like? When we consider the prime example of Jesus, when did he raise his voice at people? When he was flipping over tables in the temple because those priests and those religious leaders were taking advantage of the sincere worshipers. He said, you are vipers, you are hypocrites, this is not going to work. But when he was pulling aside people, follow me, I want to teach you, I want you to learn from me, I want to guide your life unto salvation, he wasn't screaming at them. He pulled them aside to some quiet gardens so that he could interact with them personally. That is the model of leadership that both those men and those women both need to recognize in their considerations of what it means to be a leader, what it means to have a leadership role, what it means to be in harmony with that leadership role. But as long as the woman is looking for a man to have bass in his voice, and as long as the man is looking for barking orders at people as a sign of his respectability, both of them are going to continue that dysfunction because they're feeding each other in it. And it's hard to break systems like that because both of them think that what they're doing is right until the woman who is looking for this base meets a man who knows better. He's the one who's trying to talk to her the way that Jesus would. He's the one who's trying to communicate and interact with her on that level of respect and her humanity and an equal human being and a person in this relationship. He's the guy that a lot of dysfunctional women say is too nice. He's not good enough for me. I'm looking for some thug love or some struggle love and all of these different iterations of what it used to be called. If you know a woman out there, or if you are listening on the playback, woman, if you are expecting this man to yell at you just as a measure of his leadership, break up with him before you ruin him for the next woman. That would be my advice to the people who are watching, to all of this who will be shared. If you are that broken woman who is looking for a man to get to a certain level before you listen to him, and you found a nice guy who's willing to respect you as a person, break up with him before you ruin him for somebody else. Figure out where you are and why you still expect for his leadership to look like a demeaning, disrespectful charge over you. And once you hammer that out, you will be ready to move forward in a quality relationship.
And you say that because her babies, they constantly say, they call me Mr. Kibbles, and they were like, Mr. Kibbles, you never scream. Why don't you yell when you? And I've just, it's no purpose for me. If I can't talk to you like this and get my point across, I don't need to be talking to you.
Exactly.
And yes, I'm not saying that I haven't yelled. And then I'm not trying to say that I used to be that have that bad boy status in a sense, because when she hears the stories, unfortunately, of my past and some things that I don't feel proud of, it's like, dang, I look at you now and I can't see that person. And it just really comes from those habits, those not being able to back then know that they were habits. And so definitely when you say that, because my dad screamed, my dad talked down and his dad did that. And if I'm not mistaken, my mom said my great granddad did the same thing. And that was one of the, I just don't feel the purpose and need for it. But Miss Morris, do you have anything?
Yeah. Number one, again, just like everybody else said, thank you for the opportunity again to be upon the platform and to meet you other lovely ladies. Of course, I know we're great friends. For pretty much to break generational habits, it's going to have to start with you yourself. And then it's going to take you identifying who you are, knowing who you are, and it's going to take you going within and sitting with yourself. Number one, it's going to take you giving yourself to yourself and try to give yourself to anyone else. That's number one. Number two, it's going to take you letting go of the familiar and learning, being okay to take on and learn something new.
Yes.
Also, it's going to take you being willing to challenge what you've been taught, and learn and be confident on learn what what you've been taught as well. Because there's some things that we've been taught that it wasn't that it was good for that time. But now that we've come learned, we just have to go through it to now just say, okay, this, I'm looking at my parents' life. I don't see their life getting, I don't see, they haven't progressed. I look at grandma and papa's life. They life ain't progressed. And if I try to take on what they've done and add it to my life, I know that if it didn't help them, it's not going to help.
It's not gonna help you.
So, exactly. So those are my advice for you. Give yourself to yourself before you give yourself to anyone else. Be willing to go inward to identify who you are. Be willing to challenge what you've been taught, and be willing to unlearn some things and to take on new things and take off the old things. Be willing to learn some new things to progress your life forward.
Absolutely.
Well, great, ladies. I would definitely like to end with, truly, me and you have kids. I actually have 5 myself. I have 3 boys and 2 girls. So I would, I would lead with, because like I said, I've ruined my kids, and a short story of having one and having the second one and just leaving her out to dry, then having 2 more kids, still leaving that second one out to dry, not being able to be in those last 2 kids' life because of the person I decided to have kids with, and then having a 5th, and then finally realizing that, I can't continue to have kids and leave that second child out and abandon her like that. I did go back when she was 16, and we do have a relationship now. But what you can do, and something that I had to realize, especially with the other 2 kids, they're just kind of coming back. They're adults in a sense, 19, 18. They feel that they're bigger and they have balls now, that they don't have to do what their mom said. They can talk to me, but they still kind of in their mom's house, so I still can like barely contact them, which is fine. But the fact that you have boys, don't rely on the dad to teach them how to be husband. If they are meant to be husband, do not wait, because as I know, a lot of women sit and say, well, I can't teach a boy to be a man, but you are a woman and you know how you want to be respected. That's what you teach them.
Yeah.
So don't never feel as though that you have nothing to teach your boy and that I have to send them off to their dad to learn something if you're not with their dad. No. It's always just something I had to find out myself with me being around girls, that regardless of me not knowing how, I sat and I learned what it meant to be on a period, what pads they needed in case that mom wasn't there. I can actually go to the store. I can actually be there for my daughter as well. And that's not me trying to take. I had to understand that it wasn't that I was taking on replacing or being a dad mom. It was called responsibility.
Yeah.
Right.
It's being a parent. Absolutely.
Yes. So never, I'm not saying that you have thought that, but if you have, never think. So ladies, if you're listening, and it's not throwing men out of the window, because definitely men, you have to stop thinking that it's okay for your boys to have 4 or 5 girlfriends.
Right.
It is not okay. It is not a great thing. It is not something to be happy about.
Right.
Because those same boys, if they have sisters, are protective, and they don't want their sisters to go through the same thing that they're doing to other girls. But and so it's not in any form or fashion getting the blame off of men, because you have to do your part too. We have to teach our men, our little boys, to be actual men, regardless if they're husbands or not. You still have to teach them to have that mentality, or if they get put in that situation to where they can be one with whomever that they're trying to be one with. And I was finna say for you, Trudy, a good thing that helped me in this relationship, the very first book that we read, you might can't read it, but it's on crap, what's that darn thing that people buy stuff from? Amazon. I was sending it to you. I would definitely send you the link, but it's called Strengthen Your Bond and Create a Strong Future. I Do, a marriage workbook for engaged couples. I always tell people that I talk to, find 10 things that's going to make a relationship work for you. Now, these things can be interchangeable with the person that you talk to, but this should be the opening application for the person that you're trying to, who you're thinking that you're going to start courting with. You give them the same job so that you can come back and y'all go back and forth with these 10 things, because there may be some things that the person may say, hey, I can't do number 9. And if they say that, you ask them, why? Can you explain? Because they may have a legitimate reason for you to say, you know what? Okay, I can tweak that a little bit. Now, there should be some things that are untweakable. And if it's untweakable, there's nothing wrong with being friends with that person and saying, let me go on to the next.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We put too much pressure on ourselves.
The relationship. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. No. What's her name next?
Sean.
Miss Trinette.
Huh? What's your name?
Trinette.
Trinette. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't catch your
No
name.
problem.
But yeah, I would love to, connect with you, because it's just a lot of things that I'm going through, and I need to gain more understanding and about that. I have a therapist right now, but I need to gain more understanding about relationships and how they work, because Miss, I want to say Miss Morris, is that you on the end? You brought up some very good points that I'm actually going through right now, and like after having my baby, I'm just so confused and lost about like how relationships work right now. So I definitely need to connect with you ladies.
Oh, most definitely.
Awesome.
And we and actually it's funny because over time after my mom died in 2017, I went into that's another show, but went into depression and lost my confidence. And I connected with Coach Morris Tip with her confidence journey. So it's all about connection, and again, it's all about kingdom building, because for me, and I'm pretty sure with the other young ladies, you want to see everybody live their best life, and
Yes.
the enemy will highlight those generational curses. He will highlight those everything that you're doing wrong, and that's not the way God intended for us to live. So most definitely, we'll exchange numbers, or LaRon, you can give my number or whatnot. Let's do this. I'm all about let's break this, because again, it takes a village to get through this. When she was sharing about the model of marriage and so forth, it is like, when you think about it, it's like, yeah, that's what we've been taught. That's
Yes.
and this leads into the generational habits, unhealthy generational habits. So it's all about connecting. So most definitely, yes, let's connect.
So with that being said, guys, I totally appreciate it. And for those that end up watching this being recorded, because I'm going to, you're going to basically see this not live. So hopefully you watch it through its entirety. I know some people have short attention spans, but this was a great show. And hopefully you will share it, because not only do a buttload of women need to watch this, men, you're not off the hook. A whole crap load of y'all need to watch this. So, but definitely tune in next Wednesday where me and Brian and hopefully I can get a couple of more other men express how, not how, but what do I need from my woman. I think she already knows, but I'm gonna express it anyway, and maybe it'll be something new. Cause she hasn't cooked my little spicy rice in a while, and I really need that.
Oh,
She probably gonna kill me. But we're gonna end it with that, guys. We totally appreciate it. You guys have a great night.
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Good night.